Hello and welcome to this latest edition of our podcast series, Leading with Advanced Analytics. It is part of our Predictive AI World Forum, and I'm your host, Malay Upadhyay, CXO at SalesChoice. It's a podcast series where we continue to talk to experts in the field who have been showing exemplary usage of analytics to drive critical business success, particularly in this difficult period. And joining us today to share her experience is Tina Tuli, VP of Marketing Strategy and Operations at Magic Leap, who will be speaking to our CEO, Dr. Cindy Gordon.
Tina, welcome to the Predictive World series. Like Malay said, where we're featuring leaders in advanced analytics. And one of our objectives of putting this podcast series together was really to hear the voices of women that are making an incredible difference. Your career highlights, really surrounds disruptive innovations and technology. So we'd just love to hear what your thoughts are on your career and what attracted you to be such a game changer.
Thank you, Cindy, for having me here today, and thank you for this opportunity. So I have been fortunate enough to be part of two computing evolutions that I describe within disruptive tech. One is with mobile computing with the birth of smartphones, and second is spatial computing with the birth of wearable technology. I started a research in motion when it was at a stage which is referred to by Jeffrey Moore's book, Crossing the Chasm, when they were about to go from enterprise into the consumer space. And I was part of their huge exponential growth strategy, not only within Canada and US, but globally. Additionally, early on in my career at Research in Motion, I was exposed to digital marketing, which was actually in its infancy stage. This was the emergence of social media, user-generated content, integrated video strategies that is very common in marketing discipline today. So coupled with these new disruptive tech, which was smartphones, going into mass market, along with a new engagement model of engaging your customers and target audiences, I had a great opportunity to research in motion to really cultivate my skill set and understand the efficiencies and effectiveness of technology and efficient way of engaging your target segments. And then I went to Magic Leap, another disruptive technology in AR, VR, MR. It's definitely a space that's still being defined. And when I started at Magic Leap, which was 5 years ago, AR and VR was not even on the map. There was low awareness on the technology and product category, but I've seen a huge shift in the last couple of years with a lot of conferences focused on this space, with a lot of associations, emerging competitors, and customers. So I was really lucky to be part of that and driving the narrative of what XR and spatial computing is today.
You think about the fortunate opportunity to be involved in such incredible movements, right? Where now we take for granted, smart mobile. And you're absolutely right. The augmented reality and virtual reality world is, when you look at our Gen X and Ys and, our new little ones that are coming up, they now have iPads and other mobiles, even at the age of 3. And now we've got robotic toys for them as well to, mummies on the road, etc. So be curious, being immersed in such an advanced technology dimension, you're really very much ahead, particularly on this last development where you're working at Magic Leap. You're ahead of the curve. What have you found from a leadership point of view that you can pass along, and does it make a difference when you're working in a very fast-paced, disruptive technology environment versus maybe another organization that was more mature like BlackBerry? So I'd love to hear the comparison. What works, what doesn't work? What did you take away?
So yeah, when I look at disruptive technology, I define it as something that significantly alters the way consumers or businesses operate. It takes the old way of doing something and really replaces it with something that's superior and just better. And when you become a market disruptor, whether it was Research in Motion and Magic Leap, you really need to own your narrative early on because this is new technology and have a clearly defined value prop. What problem are you trying to solve? As Simon Sinek says, start with the why. So, when you're increasing awareness, not only you need consistent messaging, but you also need strong, solid marketing strategies, which is all coupled down to understanding your audience. So one of the things that we did early on at Magic Leap was a TAM analysis, which is your total addressable market. You need to start there. This allows you to really understand who your audience is, the market size, what motivates them, how to engage them, where to engage them. And this just sets up the foundations to really drive your marketing strategy forward. And it's not a one-time exercise. We did it in the beginning. It was one of my first projects at Magic Leap when I started in 2015. We did it year after year because the market would change, the customers were changing. So consumer research is really important. This is why you have focus groups. So this is where you really get the learnings of like understanding who you're targeting and how to course correct.
So in many ways, the deep dive in the emerging technologies, you spend a lot more time on focus groups and consumer research than maybe that was not the case over at BlackBerry because they were further along in the maturity of their product innovations. Was there a distinct difference between the two?
Yes. So at BlackBerry, they had already penetrated into the enterprise market space, and then they started bleeding into consumer, and that's when they crossed the chasm. They got their early adopters. Rogers, I believe, was their first customer at the gate as a carrier. But Magic Leap was a whole different frontier because at BlackBerry there was still competition. They had owned the enterprise space. The tech was there. It was evolving. Then you get into 5 years ago with Magic Leap, and if you were to ask anybody about VR and AR, just even your own family, they wouldn't really know what you're talking about. So they'll have their own version of it. So it was really, really early on. So there was a lot of narrative that we had to build to let what we said is our early adopter customers to really understand what this technology could really do. So we were definitely ahead of, we were ahead at BlackBerry, and then we crossed the chasm, where at Magic Leap, where we were just at the early stage of Jeffrey Moore's book, Crossing the Chasm, like right in the beginning.
Yeah, so I really love your term of narrative, getting the narrative right and getting that down clearly. And when you think about the operational roles that you would have had in leading your resources to basically the call to actions that you're putting out, what was the structure in the organizations? Let's focus on Magic Leap, the kind of direct reports you had to put in place, the kind of processes, practices. Obviously, you're driving foundational enablement as well, right? Through the growth. Yeah. You certainly had a lot of capital to apply.
Absolutely. So I really started in digital marketing and marketing operations to set the foundations because it was early on. I've always said diversification across your marketing skill set is important. Marketing professionals in general are think out of the box. They have a think of the box out of the box mindset. They're very creative, and they look for roles that will cultivate their creativity and innovation. Marketing analytics and operations is very foundational, and it's not always the first role that everybody will jump on early on in their career, but they should. And the reason for that is this is, again, understanding your TAM analysis, ROI on campaigns, research, and dashboards. So I started building out this huge operational function because our CEO and our C-suite was really looking to see what was changing the business, because we were an R&D company. A lot of investment was going into R&D. Not that marketing was an afterthought, but marketing was maybe the investment wasn't as heavy in the beginning. So you really need to sell in the importance of what you're doing. So coupled with understanding the marketing analytics or marketing sciences, and then operations, so it's budget planning, FP&A planning, forecasting, agency relations. If you couple that together, it really is, the left brain versus the right brain type of philosophy. And, you should understand all disciplines of marketing: brand, digital, media, analytics, operations. A good marketer understands how they're interconnected. So I've always built teams to make sure that they represented them across. And I remember one of my great mentors used to say to me when I had, even at BlackBerry, I started to get a little bit into the operations role, he said, you want to be the smartest person in the room, because you may not walk in with a sexy campaign or the creative visual PowerPoint, but you will be able to really articulate the ROI and what's moving the bottom line. And this is what will get leadership's attention within your organization and continue buy-in across the organization. So I think it's really important, you build out your different functions, and I have, but I've always made sure that marketing analytics and operations was a core group within my department, because you really need to go back to the organization and really tell them how the investment in marketing has helped the bottom line.
Is it difficult finding the right talent with, the precision, detailed analytics, but also the marketing context and the business, language to translate into ROIs? And, because when you look out into the marketing master's programs, a lot of the times, the precision of data sciences, advanced analytics. I know we're starting to see a shift in design, but how easy is it to find that kind of talent? We've got so many of our schools across, the world now investing in data sciences and analytics. And obviously, I was just curious if it was hard to tap into talent when you were recruiting actively at Magic Leap.
I think it's a different type of talent. You sometimes get analysts or people with financial background, whereas individuals that have stayed in the creative side of the house for marketing and brand may not have the deep dive skill set to do some of this stuff. Some of them do, and this is why I always say diversification is amazing. Like if you can do both, left brain, right brain, you're a very strong marketer that can be able to go across the board, and that brings you into a leadership role because you're able to have those conversations and manage up. But it can be difficult, but I'm finding now that marketing sciences and analytics and research is taking, with the advanced technology and AI, it's definitely taking a driver's seat in a lot of career path goals for individuals, and just with the pool of resources and talent out there.
Right, for sure, Tina. Let's change perspectives, and let's kind of go back in time, and I'd like you to imagine that you're in elementary school first, and then we'll go to junior high and high school and then university. I'd love to hear your journey. Most of the research in terms for advancing women in STEM, which is obviously a business imperative for us globally, and we've seen a decline in the enrollments in engineering. And what was your journey like? Were you balanced in math and sciences? How did you discover yourself? And let's just hear your story. I don't know, we're going to start with grade 3.
Oh my gosh, far back. Yeah, I think in elementary school, I was always had a creative side to me for sure. My parents used to say to me, like, my art drawings, my artwork was always impeccable. So I always had this creative side where even with I had younger siblings, and they would have projects, and I'd be forced to help them out on building out their Bristol boards and stuff. But I think I was strong across the board. I really didn't find exactly what I was looking for until I started, I started my business administration path forward first at Sheridan College. And I remember as I was, you have foundational years and that subjects, and then when I went into marketing and some of those other type of subjects, I gravitated really well. I was like, I think this is what I want to do. And so I went to Sheridan College. I remember one professor that really changed the course of my whole career. And I was in a marketing class, and he said to me, and it was far-fetched back then, he recognized my talent. He said, you could be you should go to university. You could be a vice president of marketing. Like, you have the talent. And I was like, wow, no one's ever said that to me before. He's like, yeah, you should just write on a sticky note and put it on your mirror. Just keep it up there. And it's resonated with me so hard that, like, I was in my last year at finishing my 3-year diploma. It resonated. That one professor and that one comment he made to me, like, changed my course. I then started applying to universities, I didn't think about it. I'm like, okay, let me go get my BCom. Then I went in to do my BCom, and when I did my BCom, it was great. I excelled and was just motivated. It's just interesting how, like, you know, they say teachers are so important and instructors are so important. Instructors, they can change the course of anybody, just giving them motivation. So, and then I went to Ryerson and got my Bachelor of Commerce, had a concentration in marketing, and I knew right then that this was where I needed to be because, you know, I had the creativity, but I also had the theory and understanding how to bring products to market, and just had a great faculty there at Ryerson at that time. And my first role at a university was with a small ERP company in Mississauga that really allowed me to cultivate just a little bit on brand development. They were really small, so experiential marketing, corporate website, and they gave me enough space for me to cultivate my skill set. And it was kind of the baseline foundations. And then from there, my next role was at Tech Data as a vendor marketing manager. And it was a short-term contract, but I took a risk and I said, you know what, I think this is a great opportunity for me. And it was my first exposure to partner marketing type of activities where I was building co-integrated marketing programs and understanding how two organizations go together to target the same customer and achieve the same KPIs and objectives. And then during my MBA, and then I went to MBA school, I had an internship at Daimler Chrysler Financial in Mississauga, where I was my first exposure to channel marketing and understanding sales enablement and channel management. So all that coupled together, I think, gave me a different perspective and lens to when I landed at Research in Motion that really helped me excel. And so I had the fortunate opportunity to do a lot of these experiences early on. And once I landed there, I was able to really excel at Research in Motion, and it just set me on the path to where I am today.
You know, it's always interesting hearing the roots, and, you know, you're right in the sense of, you know, a few special comments from special leaders can create a vision that kind of totally changes a lens on what one might do. And you know, the fact that you pursued a BCom as well, in the sense of more financial knowledge, etc., was giving you those deeper financial skills to really advance into some of the bridging, the marketing, but also the analytics and understanding, you know, the importance of balance sheets and income statements and really speaking the language of business. I'd be curious because, you know, we've talked a lot about the breadth of marketing disciplines, you know, the depth of the need for different theoretical disciplines, and obviously, you know, with the career path you've chosen, you've built a solid business foundation, but also a very solid marketing professional foundation. What about the softer skills? I mean, obviously with emotional intelligence, 360 leadership profiling, you know, if you step back and said, you know, I've got all the business and knowledge foundations, what were the softer skills that you were nurturing irrespective of theory, and what have you observed on how important it is to advance an organization with other softer skills to make it to the top?
I think softer skills are the most powerful arsenal that a leader can have in leadership. I call what I refer to as relationship currency, which has always been something that I've fostered my interactions internally within any organization. Relationship currency, I think, is such a valuable asset in your career growth goals, because it motivates. You know, when you start within a new organization, you're building relationships, and if it really helps on your onboarding success. So you have other people motivated to support you in your success in your new role. They can act on your behalf. They interconnect you with other individuals in the organization that will help build your internal relationships and network. So the strong EQ is enabled by relationship currency. So I've always seen that EQ really helps you manage your feelings and emotions along with your team members and everyone around you. And it's never the situation at hand, it's how you react to the situation that's going to set up the path for a successful tone and outcomes in terms of what you're trying to solve. And I feel like IQ is definitely cultivated through your experiences, through the projects you do. You're cultivating your skill set. But your EQ is all about managing culture, building a positive environment. I've always had an open and collaborative environment within my teams where individuals could come speak to me not only about professional concerns or ideas, but personal advice and guidance. And so, what makes a good leader versus a great leader, I strongly attribute to EQ. I've noticed in the past leadership and leaders within our organizations that possess EQ, people naturally gravitate towards, and they're a strong force within the organization. I think IQ just comes. It's something that you gain with experience and exposure, but EQ is something you should always cultivate. Managing your feelings and motivating individuals is what's going to make you excel and take you into those leadership roles.
So, this is always one of the most fascinating topics for us when we start to look at the harder dimensions. You look at advanced analytics, and obviously you've got to be able to sell a point of view, right? So then you bring in the communication skills, right? The influence skills, the reputation, the trust, the authenticity. What's the role that mentoring's played for you to build up that EQ along your career journey? And, what is the importance of a mentor to help you get to, the next goalpost that you outlined?
Oh, I think mentors are really important. They're individuals that can be within your organization, someone from the past, someone influential, that you have aligned core values and beliefs. Mentors usually provide you an unbiased and open platform for discussion. They provide you constructive feedback as well as guidance, and it can be both professional and personal ambitions or any conflict situations. My mentors in the past have really given me the ability to, from a professional level, to hone in on my marketing skill set and craft. They've given me the opportunity to take on different projects and supported me in extending my breadth of knowledge, as well as supporting me in areas when I fall. We're only human, and nothing is done perfect. That's just not life, and they're there to guide you, on the good times and the bad times, and how to get through them. And I've had mentors that have been both male and female that have given me different perspectives that have really molded my leadership style that I have today. Good mentors don't just give you answers. They provide you clarity and guidance for you to arrive at your decision with confidence. And that's the big trait, the big quality that I saw in the mentors that have been part of my professional past.
Tina, because now you've kind of risen to the top, and now it's continuing to rise even further. I'm just curious in the sense of how many mentors do you recommend that a professional have? And the research sometimes shows you should have at least 5 to 7. So I'm just curious, what your number was.
My number's low. I've just been in many fast-paced environments, and they've usually been someone within the organization. I've had mentors, that were obviously CMOs and vice presidents of marketing, but I've also had mentors that are CFOs. Again, that's the science side, the math side, stuff that's a lot of marketers are like, some of my peers didn't even want to deal with that. But I was always fascinated with, running business outside of marketing and understanding FP&A and budgeting and headcount planning and the overall larger picture, which I think has always given me that edge. And so, yeah, I had a CFO as one of my mentors, and he was fantastic. And I learned a lot of things from him that just you're able to apply to day-to-day life. So I had like 1 to 2 at the same time. I've never had up to 5, but they've usually been within the organization or past managers of mine that I've really admired and still follow and go to for advice.
Yeah, when you have those rare individuals that you really can deeply reflect and learn from, and kind of give you the space to make your own decisions. But I love the point that you mentioned about the guidance. Tina, one of the questions that always individuals want to hear, whether it's men or women, they all want to hear, what advice do you have for young professionals who want to aspire to become a chief marketing officer, with a focus around analytics and kind of that sniper precision, so that your voice is heard by business leaders. You can keep getting the budget to advance.
Yes. Um, yeah, for young professionals that want to be a CMO or a CSO, chief sales officer, chief marketing officer, it seems very ambitious. It seems far-reaching, but the formula is very simple. And not to sound cliche, but you've got to just believe it. Like, it took one professor for me to say early on in my career, like, you could do it. Why can't you do it? One of the things I do like to recommend is don't get fixated on your role early on in your career. I believe that every experience is a building block to your success, and diversification is key. If you have the ability to be in different departments, different organizations, different mediums, diversify. So if you're in marketing, if you're in brand, go to marketing operations and analytics for a little while. If you're in digital marketing, go into media and take a look at media. Understanding the different departments and different areas and discipline within marketing is important. And I say the same for sales. Like, if you're in sales, if you're in consumer sales, try enterprise sales. If you're inside sales, try field sales, try sales operations. Diversifying is key, and that's what employers are looking for in leadership, is someone that can see the bigger picture and how it's interconnected. And if you want to take it one step further, if you have the opportunity to cross over from marketing and go into sales, and sales versus vice versa into marketing, I think that's a great move for anyone. I actually was part of the sales team for a very short time when we were building it out at Magic Leap. And it just really gives you a competitive edge, because you understand the sales cycle, you understand the demand gen activities that you need, and how you need to drive revenue. You really become the tip of the spear within the organization if you're able to, understand both sales and marketing. That's a huge competitive advantage. And I know people sometimes, marketing likes to stay in marketing, they don't cross over as much, but I think if you have that opportunity, I would take it, because once you understand, I've always called sales and marketing siblings. They're like sisters. So it's really important to understand both. And I think that gives you a huge competitive edge. But diversification is key. Don't get stuck on early on your ideal role, and just have the ability to try different things.
Yeah, I'm really glad you talked about the bridge, and I love the sibling analogy, and having myself grown up in probably more sales-driven organizations, et cetera, having that perspective between sales, marketing, but also customer service. I just wouldn't mind just clarifying the trend that you're seeing in terms of chief customer experience officers bringing the whole value chain together, sales, marketing, customer service, or that end-to-end. So to have the two sisters and the brother all together under one integrated offering. And do you see that pattern happening increasingly? And do you think we'll start getting out of some of our silo structures that we've kind of put in place in a lot of organizations?
Yeah, I think traditionally you have sales and marketing. What I'm now starting to see is roles such as like chief growth officer or VP of customer success, where, again, as you mentioned, they're bringing the two departments together and bringing individuals that can manage both, because they're very interconnected. Sales, if they're not hitting their numbers, the first people they're going to point fingers is on the marketing side, and then the marketing side usually will be like, well, you don't understand the market. I've been there many times. But now what I'm finding is they're bringing the two teams much more closer together and understanding the full sales cycle and the purchase funnel. Marketing usually sits at the top, driving awareness at the discovery, but it's got to be much more than that when you bring in CRM and ABM marketing. So definitely seeing a huge growth in chief growth officer roles especially in a lot of these startup organizations, they're really looking for someone to have that hybrid approach because they just may not have the luxury of having two executives to be driving their business early on. So we're seeing a lot of those roles being meshed into one.
Yeah, for sure. It's an exciting time. Tina, let's step back and look now at sort of the dynamics of AI, advanced data sciences, augmented reality, and what types of challenges do you see are needed to embrace these forms of disruptive technologies more rapidly? Obviously, one of the most important aspects is modernizing a society, a world. And, Canada, sometimes, at least in our nation, innovation, resilience, we're much far more conservative. In the US, you've been fortunate to work in the US and the speed that they will move at to experiment. So what thoughts do you have around looking ahead into these fields, and how do we move ahead more, in a much more agile fashion?
I feel like disruptive tech can sometimes be good and bad and can be scary. And I feel like technology kind of battles this hurdle the most. For AI, AR, VR, I am seeing growth, again, a little bit more in the US, but I've seen a lot of growth because we're starting to see, as I mentioned earlier, associations being centered around this, conferences centered around this, emergence of the big tech companies now that are trying to get into the space as well. So the Googles and Facebook getting into the AR VR space. But I still think we haven't crossed the chasm yet. I think that we're still in growth stage. There's still a lot being learned from a technology perspective and what we can do, as well as how we're educating the marketplace. I personally feel that enterprise will play a very strong role in driving disruptive tech, especially AI and AR, VR, because enterprises are always looking to technology and new technology that will impact their bottom line and give them ROI. They have the budget to invest, they have the people to support. So anything that's reducing their costs, reducing errors, reducing turnover, they're going to be interested in investing. So now I'm starting to see, emergence of vertical-based solutions in AI and in AR, VR. We're seeing new ISV companies coming into the market. We're seeing different POCs, proof of concepts, different targeted communications into entertainment. So I feel like enterprise is going to play a big role in helping us get there. And they actually did the same thing with smartphones. They were the first to adopt, and then it gets into the mass market. But I do also believe, like, as enterprises moving forward, we will be bleeding into the consumer market through the media and entertainment vertical. And this will be through like location-based experiences. This is, when you go to Toronto Pearson Airport, if you go to the US terminal, and this is when I knew, I was like, okay, we're getting traction now. In the US terminal, there's actually a VR experience at Toronto Pearson. So it's starting to bleed into the consumer and mass market, as well as media consumption and gaming consumption. So all of that is going to help us bleed into the consumer market. So I believe B2B is going to be in the driver's seat. And then B2B2C is what's going to help us get into mainstream and consumer market.
Wow, just so much to look forward to. Let's chat a little bit about summarizing the top 3 lessons that you've learned to get to this point in your career that you really would want to pass along. And, it's sometimes hard to distill so many experiences and accomplishments that you've, been fortunate to experience. But what would be the top 3 high points that you would say?
If I could say the top 3, one would definitely be taking risks. I always hear, from everyone, oh, that's my dream job role, or that's the type of product I want to work for, or a company I want to work for, or the product I want to design for. Job opportunities may not be exactly in the product category in the field that you're looking for, but I've always taken risks in my role, on all my roles, and I found that taking risks actually yield the most results. Like in the long term, you get a lot of benefits, and it surprises you. And the roles that I was kind of didn't want to take, and then I kind of like, spoke to my mentor, spoke to everyone and said, okay, I'll take the risk, have been the best roles of my life. So I've always said, like, take the risk, get out of your comfort zone, especially if you're early on in your career. Look at internal and external opportunity. Use your relationship currency internally. This is what's going to let you diversify. So when you're in an organization, you're building relationships with different departments. I've had people from product go into BD, marketing into BD, vice versa. You've built that relationship. Take the risk. I think all experiences are a success, a building block to your success. And so that's definitely one of the things that I would tell individuals is to just take the risk. Second, I would say build diverse teams. Motivated teams work really well together. And us as leaders and managers, sometimes we'll want to hire somebody that's like within the field or come from the same product category. And I think sometimes giving someone a chance that might not be in the same industry, they might come from the food industry and go into technology, it brings a different perspective and really helps cultivate your team environment. And so take risks on individuals too as well. Build diverse teams with people with different type of backgrounds. You're just going to get great a team dynamic and great ideas and innovation within your team. And celebrate your wins, learn from your pitfalls, and just cultivate the team growth. But build diverse teams. Be open to building diverse teams. And then last, sorry,
there's got to be a third. I'm sure there's a third.
The third is agility is one of the big ones for me, is because we lived in a fast-paced environment. Business today is not what it was even 5 years ago, 10 years ago. And corporate strategy is constantly changing because the market is constantly changing. And you'll have decisions that come top down that you may not be able to influence or even agree with. And I remember one of my mentors as well, I loved to sing by him, and it's always stuck with me. And he would say, we're not here today to make the decision. We're here today to make that decision good. So, don't stress over what you can't control. Give it your best effort. Don't get frustrated, because you will have decisions that you may just kind of question, but you just won't be able to influence at that time. Being able to be agile in this type of environment, which is now becoming the norm, is really important. So make sure you're just able to be agile and bring agility to your day-to-day work.
Yeah, it sounds like you were fortunate to have leaders that really valued reflective learning, in the sense that we've got to make a decision. We'll do the best we can with the facts that we have, and let's move forward. And so that spirit of, we will learn if there's a gap, right? And, that kind of enablement drives energy and confidence to take more risks. What a lovely 3 points. Take risks, build diverse teams, and be agile. Now, in closing our segment today, obviously, you've had tremendous success. You're going to be looking ahead and moving beyond your experience with Magic Leap. Is there anything that you want to leave behind in terms of as you go into the next journey? And I know you're still exploring, but I'm always curious about, what is there anything you think you need to shed as you, mature to the next step in your career journey?
Yeah, I think moving forward in my next career journey, which I'm really looking forward to, is I think agility is going to be really important. The environment is changing rapidly. Business environments, corporate strategy changes quarter to quarter. That's our new reality. And with our current climate, with COVID-19, organizations have been forced to be agile and adapt to this new business environment. And I want to be able to bring this agility coupled with EQ to allow not only organizations, but like teams to really be able to navigate and move forward in uncertain times and uncertain environments, both globally as a climate, as well as economically. We are trying to look to what the future of business is going to be in a couple of months and even until the end of the year. So agility is really important, and I would need to take that forward with me wherever I land. I don't think I would shed anything, and the reason why is I believe every experience is a building block, and it makes you stronger. It makes you wiser, more mature. Life throws you curveballs, and you learn and grow. I am who I am today due to all my past experiences. So I wouldn't really shed. I would embrace them, maybe like scars, and have those scars to remind me of my growth and guide me forward. Just to have informed and solid decision-making skills. You know, your career will throw you a lot of curves and turns, and you learn from them. They might not be pleasant at the moment. They may be very stressful, but you learn from them, and you just get wiser, and you just know how to deal with situations, and that's with everyday life. So I definitely would just embrace them as scars and just move forward, and just a reminder of how to proactively be able to manage situations before they may occur.
I might do a build on the scar. I think it's a great analogy. I think I'd call them beauty marks, pleasant beauty marks to remind us of
Yes.
everything we've learned. And I've got lots of freckles, so there's lots of lessons learned. I just want to say thank you so much, Tina, for the gracious insights of your career, sharing, your journey when you were a young girl through the progress, from college to university, the inspiration of a professor, taking the risks, starting off in earlier stage companies, and then having experiences in companies like RIM, Magically. I know that you're going to have an incredible future, and I know that anybody watching this video can benefit in terms of how best to approach their career in advanced analytics, and have a dream to become a chief marketing officer. I love the fact you brought in the sales context there as well, and the sibling analogy, because sometimes you often have this going on, between sales and marketing, and the importance of coming together. And I love the fact that you value metrics and KPIs. That's a real important aspect. We do see people taking degrees in data sciences, but they're not able to translate the value into business context. And then obviously, if you can't do that, you can't sell and communicate effectively to get to the next milestone. So thanks again for all of your time today, and enjoy the long weekend that's coming ahead. Thanks so much, Tina.
Thank you so much, Cindy. This was great, and I look forward to what the future holds for everyone, and technology. Keeping moving it forward for Canada.
Absolutely. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Have a good day.
You too.